guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another FPL Game Week team selection video. We're having our dogs just go a little bit rampant here. It makes for fun content. And I'm here as always with Yelena. Yelena, how's it going?
It's going really well, thank you. Yeah, I've got two dogs here currently, so I'm going to keep muting myself in case they start barking. But so far, so good. They've been quiet for like a good 5 minutes.
I know the pain because sometimes Archie will just start barking like out of nowhere, and I'm like, dude, like there's nothing here. Like, what are you doing? And it will be at the most inopportune times as well. So absolutely no problem. So guys, let's get into FPL video. As you know, in these videos, you will see our Game Week 9 teams, how we did our game, so you need a replacement, and then our Game Week 10 teams. And we'll talk a little bit about the wildcard team selection and the players that we think would be great to focus on if you are on a wildcard. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and you should be able to see my Game Week 9 team. Perfect. So my Game Week 9, it started off really rough and then it got like progressively better. I had a very, very slight green arrow for the first time in ages.
Yay!
So I was happy at least to get a green arrow, but not having Stella just still was destroying my rank. All of my midfielders did return, which was really nice. And Trippier as well was the standout for me. And then Watkins and Holland. I did end up captaining Holland, and now I'm kind of like, should I not have? Like, I just don't know. But it ended up being an okay week for me. Not the best, but not the worst. What about you, Yelena?
Yeah, I had a good game week as well. All of the midfield returning. I was especially with Gordon and McGinn because they were my differential options. Gordon scored a goal and McGinn got an assist. Even though I benched him, it was the right bench decision. But the same as you, the Haaland captaincy. Last week, we were so sure. We were like, they're playing Brighton. Brighton are poor defensively. This is the week to captain Haaland. And it wasn't. So even though the thing is, he got a return. So if you take that in isolation, at least he didn't blank. But when you think about captaining any other of our players, and we would have had more points, it's a bit annoying. But I am overall quite pleased with how the team did.
Yeah, no, I really like your team, and I was telling you offline, like, damn, I really like, I'm like, should I try to get to Yelena's team somehow? Because I really, really like it. But let's go into our game, and thank you everybody who voted in the little poll. I know I put it up a bit late. I'll try to get it up earlier. I just like always forget, like, and then I get to Friday and I'm like, oh shit, I haven't done this yet. So I'm back in the positives.
Yay!
Finally. Well, good for my team, but unfortunate for the game. Lucius did return, but Salah got 2 goals, so I went up 7 points. It got out of the negatives. Yelena, who did you? Oh, you said to take Mbeumo out, and he got a goal and an assist. So that's why you've gone down. And
I was doing so well.
You're still miles ahead. Like, it's amazing, but the chat is catching up because we made really good pick for you guys, and Bowen returned. So I'll walk you through my pick for this week. I see that we both went for Aston Villa players. So Isak is one that I've had my eye on. I was kind of trying to see if there was a way for me to potentially bring him into my team, because I really do want to get a Newcastle attacker in there. But I believe he's going to be out injured. I've looked up, and Eddie Howe hasn't had any injury news. So I do think he's going to be out. So if you do have him in your team, I don't know the length of time that he's going to be out injured yet. But I would make sure to have Ollie Watkins in your team, because he's just on an absolute mad run and he's looking like flying. He's one of the players in my team that's consistently returning. So he is a bit of a high price point, but I do think that he's worth it. Yelena, what about you? Two Aston Villa players as well in there.
Yeah, so I'm doing Diaby out and Douglas Luiz in. Diaby started off amazingly this season, and there was a point just before Ollie Watkins had his haul against Brighton where I was actually going to take out Watkins, bring in Diaby, because he looked like the main man. And then now completely changed. And Douglas Luiz seems to be the midfielder to go for. I think he's overtaken Diaby in FPL points now by 5. He scored 5 goals already this season. They've got a home game coming up this week. So I definitely think Douglas Luiz is going to have an absolutely massive haul. And it scares me that he's not in my actual FPL team.
I know, I see all of these suggestions and I'm like, oh, should I like find a way to transfer this person in as well? And then for the chat, you guys voted to take out Rashford if anybody still has Rashford in their team and bring in Saka. So Yelena, that's kind of been a big debate this week. What are your thoughts about bringing Bukayo Saka into your teams?
Oh, we were saying this before the stream. My plan when I wildcarded, because Saka is one of the best FPL assets. I'll stand by that. I love having him in my team, and I just feel like he's the best sort of Arsenal attacker to have. But I brought in wildcard just because Saka was out for that game against City. I didn't know what things were looking like with his injury. And now Son's returning for me. And I really want Saka, but I really like Son. And for that price point, it's really hard to find a way to bring Saka in. So I think I'm about 80% sure I will bring him in this game week. And Arsenal's run of fixtures look incredible. But there's part of me that kind of is a bit concerned about Saka's fitness and whether Arteta's going to push him too much and make him play. And then we're going to have another week where he's out entirely. But it's a hard one. What do you think?
Yeah, it's really, really hard. That will kind of bring me, I guess, perfectly to my Game Week 10 team. So I've had Saka in my team like since the beginning of the season. I don't think he's left my team. Even in my wild card when he was potentially injured for Man City, I took a risk. It didn't end up paying off and he didn't play. But I just kept him in my team because I knew that I didn't want to transfer him out. So I do have Saka in my team, but I'm kind of the opposite because I actually transferred Son out of my team this weekend. He was returning for me, but basically my rank has been suffering so much not having Salah in my team. So I felt that I needed to find a way to bring Salah into my team. So I ended up taking a -4 this week. I had 2 free transfers and I did 3 transfers in total. So I did Luis Diaz out to Cole Palmer. I did Son out to Salah, and then I did Burn out to the Lascelles. And I like my team. I feel like it's really light now that I've brought Salah in, but I was just having so much FOMO about not having him in. Now I'm very worried about not having Son in my team because I think that underlying stats for him are looking so good. I do have Madison, but I only have 0.2 million in the bank, so I don't even have that much room to play with. And I really wanted to keep Trippier in my team because I feel like he's looking phenomenal. He's one of the other players that's returning basically week in, week out for me. So yeah, it's a bit interesting. I brought in Cole Palmer. He's on penalties for Chelsea. We saw versus Arsenal that Raheem Sterling went up to take the penalty, and then Enzo Fernandez said like, no, Cole Palmer's on penalties, and had him take it. He scored it. And I do feel like he is pretty nailed on in this Chelsea attack at this point in time, at least until Nkunku comes back. But I think that he's looked so strong and maybe like the best out of the attackers that Chelsea have so far. So I think that he's a really good option. When I brought him in, I think it was just 4.9 million, and he's been returning in the past 3 game weeks. Obviously, Chelsea have really, really difficult fixtures coming up, so this is a bit of a punt pick. Don't know if it's necessarily going to work out, but I figured Chelsea did look good versus Arsenal. They probably should have won that game, and we do look like scoring goals, and when we look like scoring, Cole Palmer tends to be at the heart, if not an assist. He's on penalties, so that's why I thought like he could be a pretty good FPL option. Do have my eye on Gordon as well, if I can like somehow fit him into my team. But yeah, I don't know. I always think my team looks good, and then it ends up doing shit. But what do you think?
I was going to say, I love this team, but every single week I say this, and then I end up being completely off. I think Palmer's really interesting, and when he went up to take that penalty and Sterling was getting involved, I was like, no, please, just keep Palmer on penalties. He's got a great track record with them. I also like the Palmer choice because if you need to bench him, you don't feel bad about it because he is such a cheap price point. You can bring him in, and if you have an injury in your midfield, there's quite a decent chance that he might get an attacking return. So I really like that option. And I think Salah, you messaged me last week, the rage transfer. You were like, I've had enough. I'm taking a -4. He's coming in. So I think for your own mental health, I'm glad Salah's in the team. The Maddison and Son thing, that's exactly what I'm sort of wrestling with this week. And I think Son, especially now he's playing that central midfield position, central forward. Oh my God, my words. Now he's playing that position. He looks like such a threat, but I don't know. I don't know whether I'm just being naive, but I kind of feel like with Maddison, he's going to pick up assists. Like he may not be getting the goals, but as long as we get some attacking returns, you've then got Salah and Trippier, Watkins and Haaland to kind of make up for the lack of Son. And this is the thing, like with our teams, we made okay captaincy decisions last week, but if we'd have gone for alternatives, we would have scored more points, but we still got green arrows. So I think you just have to accept that there's going to be a game week where there's a key player that you don't have that is going to do well. But as long as the rest of them kind of bear the brunt of that, you'll be fine. So I think now I've seen your team, I feel better about doing my Son to Saka transfer. But I don't know. It's just so nerve-wracking. And also the news about Destiny maybe not being 100% fit has concerned me. So I don't know. Would you just bring in Lascelles instead?
Yeah, so I think I'm probably, if he's not 100% fit, like if he's not fit, I don't see him coming on. So I think I'm going to leave my team as is and then just have Lascelles come on in case he's not fit. I'm not 100% sure. That's kind of like the last thing that I have in my team, but it's so difficult. Like I just feel like there's so many 50-50 decisions this year and I've been making the wrong ones. So I don't know.
Your captaincy though, captaincy on Salah this week.
Oh yeah. So I don't know. I like looking like who the fuck do I captain? I'm thinking Watkins versus Luton could be really interesting. I don't think I'm going to captain Haaland. The problem is that if he hauls, it just absolutely destroys your rank. But
Manchester United defensively haven't been great, but it's an away fixture, and we know Haaland doesn't do as well away from home.
I'm between Watkins, Saka, and Salah. I don't know. Like, who would you go for out of those three?
So at the moment, I'm on Salah. But even though Salah's been doing really well the last 2 game weeks, has he had 2 penalties in a row now? Because I've watched him play and I haven't been that... He's obviously finishing well, but I haven't been like, oh my God, it was amazing in that game. Like some of the goals I feel like were just lucky. I don't know. I don't know if I'm being too critical on him. But I'm a bit concerned that he's not going to keep up this momentum. But then he is obviously, over the past few seasons, he's like the king of fantasy football. Like you just need him in your team, don't you? So I think I am going to go Salah, but it does worry me slightly that Forest are a lot more defensively stronger. My words today are not working. Defensively, they're looking a lot stronger. And I think last year, Forest beat Liverpool 1-0 at home. And then when they went to play at Anfield, I think the score was 3-2. So it's going to be really interesting to see how much Forest have progressed this season. But I don't know whether they're going to surprise us. And then the Ollie Watkins captaincy, Luton at home seems too good to be true. Again, I think Douglas Luiz might come in and take those goals away from Watkins. It's a really hard one, really, really tricky captaincy choice this week.
I honestly might just go rogue and go Watkins just to see if I can like make up some ground. But
well, remember when you did this last season with Wilson and then he got a hat-trick or something crazy?
That was like the best decision that I've ever made in FPL, like in my life. Like that was crazy because people didn't even know if he was going to start. And I was like, honestly, play him and captain him. And it's a real shame because I feel like I do take risk in FPL. And for example, last season, I did go a couple of game weeks without Haaland and I got completely burned. Like it just destroyed my ranks. And now there have been a lot of people that have gone without Haaland and it's actually worked out because he hasn't done so well. I'm like, oh, like I took that risk, but it just didn't pay off. And now I'm like a little bit nervous about it. But yeah, I don't know. Like I might honestly just go for Ollie Watkins and see what happens just to be a bit differential. Well, I don't know. What about you and your team? How are you feeling with it?
So I haven't made my transfers yet, as you can see. Son to Saka is kind of the priority. And then my long-term planning was because I wanted Burnley for last week's fixture against Wolves, and he scored a goal, so that was a good sign. And then now they've got Burnley at home, which I think hopefully we will see a goal from Solanke again. But the plan was to use my 2 free transfers next week to downgrade Solanke to someone super cheap that will just sit on my bench, and then upgrade Burn to Trippier. But now we've got the news about Destiny. Gahey against Spurs, I'm not feeling confident about playing. And then Kabore against Villa, definitely don't feel confident about playing. So I don't know whether I need to kind of tackle, like put out that fire, maybe bring in Simicast. But hopefully, because Spurs is the early kickoff, we might get some early team news this evening. And then I think I'd quite like to just start Destiny, hope for the best, and maybe accept that I'm not going to get a clean sheet from my third defender this game week. And then just stick to the plan of Son, Saka, roll the show, and then use 2 next week. But it's hard because, like you said, those 50-50 decisions at the moment, they seem to really make or break a team. And I don't remember a season like this where it's been so sort of polarized. And if I take out Son and he hauls and then Saka blanks, I'm going to absolutely kick myself. But I think judging by, like, Son hasn't been a priority transfer for me all season, even when he got that hat trick. I think it was really early on in the season. I wasn't like, I need to bring him into my team. So I think I need to get back to that mindset of, I never planned to have Son. The only reason I had him was because Saka was injured, and just get over that. But I don't know. What do you think?
It's so difficult because I feel like there's so many ways that you could go in FPL. So I'm just taking a look at the fixture. So Arsenal play Sheffield at home, then Newcastle away, then Burnley at home, Brentford away, Wolves at home, Luton away.
I think they're
so
much
we do
better
have
fixtures.
they have really positive fixtures. And then Spurs play Palace away, Chelsea at home, Wolves away, Villa at home, and City, West Ham at home, Newcastle at home. So I do think, looking purely at the fixtures, Arsenal do have like the better lot. Spurs have been looking amazing, but I feel like maybe if you already have the Spurs coverage, like maybe you could just like diversify a bit.
Yeah.
This way you don't have all of your eggs in one basket, but Son is looking fantastic. I don't know if there's a way for you to like somehow get the money. I think it's too much to, well, Madison is up to like 8 million, right? So maybe if you downgrade Udagi, and
I think Madison had a price drop last night. I think he's 7.9. Yeah, Madison's 7.9 now.
So perhaps like you can find the money. Maybe you would have money to do like Madison to Saka. Because
yeah, I mean, what
8.5.
What I was considering was doing my Solanke transfer early this game week and doing Madison and Solanke out, then bring in Saka instead. But again, I need to kind of, I've just been on Twitter too much this week, and I'm putting far too much faith in Son, which I don't think I would have normally done. I think I would have gone, oh great, Son did well while he was on my team. Now I'm going to bring back Saka. Whereas I've spent so much time looking at everyone else's teams where everyone's going, you need to have Son. He's essential. Take out Madison, do this. And I think I'm letting it get into my head too much. And like the wild plan was to have Solanke for Burnley. Part of me, and this is really dumb and I'm not going to do it, but part of me wants to bench Son and pretend he's out of my team and then play McGinn for the Luton at home fixture. I mean, McGinn last night got a goal and an assist playing for Villa, and he got an assist last week in the Premier League. So I'm kind of tempted to go McGinn and go full on gut instinct, but I won't do that. But I mean, I could also just roll the transfer or do Destiny to someone, then keep an eye on my midfield. But then I still want Trippier. Do you see the issue? This is battling in my head.
I think you just have to listen to your gut, because like at the end of the day, like you'll feel the best even if you transfer out Son and then he hauls. If you're like, in my gut, I really thought that the best move was to bring in Saka, you'll feel so much better. I think like you have room to be able to have Son and Saka and Salah and Holland, which is super cool. I don't know how you've managed that.
But then I'm going with that Trippier probably.
Yeah.
It's really annoying because there are so many
So
good picks,
hard.
and you
I
know
feel
for a
like
fact all of the premium players now are going to blank, and it's going to be like McGinn, Gordon, Palmer, all getting hat tricks.
if Palmer gets something, I'm gonna be freaking over the moon, honestly. So let's see. But it's so hard. It's so hard. I wish I had like the answer for you, but I honestly really like your team. I think it looks really good. So
I think we're all getting a bit blinded by Son doing well recently. Spurs obviously top of the game. They're absolutely smashing it. And we haven't seen much of Saka because he was injured. Arteta was forcing him to play and it wasn't at his best. He was giving away penalties. Then a week out against City. Then he's come back. Unfortunately, it was against Chelsea, but he managed to get an assist, played the full 90 minutes. And maybe I think sometimes in FPL, we all get a bit like short-sighted with it. And it's whoever you see, like Watkins got his hat trick, and then suddenly every FPL manager is bringing him in. Very much like knee-jerk reactions. Whereas with Saka, we haven't seen the best of him because he hasn't been at the top of his game. And then the other thing with Son, which concerned me slightly, was his minutes. He was obviously having them managed. He was coming off kind of 70 to 80 minutes. And now with the added time, you can have up to 10 minutes added time. That's a 100-minute game. Coming off at 70 minutes, you're losing him for half an hour. Whereas Saka, even though he's been injured, he played the full 90 against Chelsea. And I'd rather, I think, go for the player that could get those 100 minutes versus 70. So that's another thing to
I think you
dilemma.
want to do Saka. Like,
yes,
that's
I just do it.
That reminds me of that thing that's like, should I just call Taylor up? Why just call Taylor up?
It's like I said to you, I put together a hypothetical wildcard video, and I was trying to find reasons to not bring Son into the team, and all I found was reasons why he should stay. And it's really messed my way of thinking.
It's interesting though, because do you have any picks that you don't have in your team that you would pick on a wild card?
Who did I have? I'm trying to think back because I did a Haaland draft and a Haaland-less draft. Interestingly, actually, I loved the team without Haaland because my midfield was insane. I had Trippier in defence. Then my midfield was like Gordon, who I'm a massive fan of. A lot of people were telling me to transfer out Gordon because I had money in the bank.
No,
but I think
he's going to transfer him in. I think he's
going to be explosive. I do not understand it. But again, there's that short-sighted, like Gordon got suspended. So he was obviously out for a game back. He scored a goal. I think that's going to carry on. So if anyone comments saying take out Gordon, stay away. But yeah, the midfield was like Salah, Son, Maddison, Saka. Like it was insane. It was so good. But I think is it game week 16, City's fixtures turn around, I'm going to want Haaland back. Like I think we've missed the boat to go without Haaland. And especially where people went without Haaland and then Salah just was unstoppable. And if you're captaining him, then it's fine. But I do think in the upcoming game weeks, we're going to see people struggling to get Haaland back. But yeah, it's a tough one. There's so many, like Douglas, I'd quite like to have in the team. Simicast seems like a really good asset. Darwin even up front, I think he's quite a good punt to have. And I think there's a high chance that he's going to start tomorrow. What about you? Are there any players you're like scared of not having?
Now that I don't have Son, I'm scared of not having him. I also really like the Gordon pick, so I think if I were wild carding, I would try to put him in. It's crazy how much you can spread your funds when you don't have Haaland in your team, because that 14 million is really taking up so much. And I think a lot of the teams have managed to have Haaland, Salah, Son, Maddison, Trippier. You'll have 4 out of the 5, but I haven't really seen many that have like all 5. And so it's kind of like finding your pick, but I think like those are kind of the big players for me, and I haven't managed to have all of them at once, which is a little bit.
This is where though, like last week, I was so happy with Gordon and McGinn returning because they're the differentials, and it's really frustrating in FPL when you've got the highly owned players that return. Your differentials don't really make much of a difference because everyone else is still scoring highly, so it's fine. But I was thinking last week, like if Sam blanked, if Maddison had blanked, like those differentials really would have pushed me. But for us, you've got the top kind of 5 players, but then you've got Palmer, I've got Gordon. Hopefully they'll be the ones to make us stand out a little bit and then help us with those green arrows. There'll be nice surprises.
Honestly, like this season has been so bad for me. I'm just like hoping that it turns around at some point.
I still
I
think we're
thought
so
last
early in.
I know. I thought last season I had a really bad season. The season has somehow managed to be worse than last season. So it's like a little bit hard to stay engaged with FPL, to be honest. If anybody's watching this that feels the same way, like you're not alone. I'm having a really tough season. I know Az is having a really tough season as well. And he was open about it on Twitter. And I was like, thank you for posting this because I feel not alone in my struggle.
I think also people need to be aware of like sometimes making comments about teams as well or selections, and you can post it because like with you and Az, you've both got such strong teams. Like Az had a week where he said, this is the perfect free hit team and my teams already like it. Like I'm going to smash it this week. And it was such an impressive team. And then it just blanked. And it was so unfortunate. It made no sense whatsoever. And it's the same with you. Like the 50-50 decisions where if they'd have gone well, you would be absolutely flying up the ranks because it's good players that other people haven't jumped on. And it's a really frustrating game. And because I think I've had 3 good weeks in a row, which has made the world of difference to my team. But before that, I was so disheartened. I couldn't be bothered. I was like, what's the point? Like you put all this thought and effort into it and it doesn't pay off. And then I think sometimes on Twitter, when you get people making comments and they're like, why would you have that player? Why would you do this? Like, use your words carefully. Think, is this going to be helpful to someone else? Because I think it's doubly hard playing when you're in content as well, because I'll have a bad game week and then I think, oh great, now I have to tell everyone that I made a bad mistake and this has gone wrong and I should have done this, and 10 people commented telling me to like captain Salah and I ignored it, and now they're going to say I told you so. So it's really hard to then get motivated. But this is why these chats are so good, because I think we'll message over the weekend and be like, oh, this has happened, oh no, like a player that we both don't have has now gotten a hat trick and we're in the mud and whatever. But then we can talk it through and then hopefully make it feel a bit better. And I think that's why I love these chats, because they're so lighthearted.
And I love how we both approach it as well. And it's just like our therapy session for the week.
Yeah, and it's the same with like Mira. She's the only stream I will make sure like I clear my work calendar. So I can just listen because she's streaming on YouTube now as well. So I just have that on and then I'm like working through. She's so good at FPL. She thinks is so interesting and she talks everyone through the decision making, but she's not patronizing. She's not cocky and it's so effortless. Like her streams, honestly, they're my favorite by far than anything else that's on YouTube at the moment. But I just really like the way she approaches the game because it makes me feel less pressured as well. I don't know, it's a really interesting way that she kind of delivers the information, but that's the kind of, I think, content I need to start consuming rather than people that make the right decisions every week, are very, very serious about getting a good rank.
Like, we get it, you're good at FPL.
Yeah, like, oh, I'm out of the top 10K. I'm like, oh, boo-hoo. I can't even get to top 100.
Cry me a river. That's so funny. I'm like, I just want to hit the top million. Like, get me out of 3 million territory.
Someone posts their team on a Twitter and they're like, is this any good? And it's like 104 points. I'm like, oh, no. Don't start me. Oh, it's ridiculous.
Well, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this FPL video. Hope it was useful for you. Let us know what your team selection is in the comments down below. And please, just give me positive confirmation bias about my team because I really need it this week. Make sure to follow Yelena on all socials. You'll have all of her information in the description box and the title as always. And while you're at it, make sure to follow and subscribe to the channel as well. We're almost at 14K subs, so let's see.
Yay, well done.
For that. Let's see. It's been a while. So please sub to the channel if you like the content. We're here every Friday with FPL team selection video. So hope you guys have a great rest of your day, evening, whatever time you're watching this. And until next time, we're out. Bye.
Bye.